Yeah, we are talking this morning about fear of failure. Fear of failure is like what I have seen is not really the fear of not being successful. It is more like when I fail, what happens to my worth? It is feeling of worthlessness. Now, somewhere I don't stand. Somewhere I have to disappear. Somewhere my ability to be accepted or the love that I get is linked to my performance. It's very intricate, and it's all that we have talked about till now, the self-esteem, the confidence stemming from being in that space within me. And now I'm not in that space. I'll give you an example. Um, I when I worked in a school, I had a teacher, and typically sports day, we have competitions for teachers as well. And anytime you uttered competition, she would just not like to participate. It was not her capability. She was really good. But she's like, no, 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 I'm not going to participate because somewhere she feared failing, and that was unacceptable. And where did that come from? you know what are those adult behaviors that we can observe with ourselves that are coming because of this fear of failure, right? So we procrastinate, like any of you who has experienced that. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. It's not about laziness. We may be labeled as being lazy, but then why am I pushing it out to the next day? Why am I not doing it now? I mean, it's just become a habit also. I'll do it later. And then I forget, and somebody is out there to point it out to me. And then I blame myself more than anybody else blaming me that I forgot again. And that adds to the already existing memory that I failed. And it becomes so subconscious that I don't even know I am procrastinating. Right. And this is typically when it comes very early in life. And these patterns keep coming back because there is some need to resolve this unresolved learning. We survived, we coped in our early years when we did not have our thinking, our ability to judge, the discrimination. None of that had developed. None of that will develop fully until at least 24 to 28 years of age. And before, I mean, I'm labeled the minute I begin walking and talking. So imagine the trauma that we go through again and again. So any mistakes that we did, and that was very blatantly pointed out, once is also enough if it was strong enough judgment. But then many a times they repeat, and that solidifies. And I don't see the warmth associated, the support associated to get me out of it. And somewhere to survive, I need to prove my worth. Deep down, I begin to believe if I fail, I might just disappear. But just that belief will not carry me through. Things keep happening, things keep coming to me. That is how the law of nature is. They keep coming, they keep knocking on our doors until we go right through it. experience it, deliberately fail it. Only then can we resolve that unresolved fear that we have. And that is many suggestions are given to you, right? When you don't feel like doing, know that you are not liking it, but still do it. That conscious effort for the first few tries must exist. Many of us settle down in the comfort zone. I'm comfortable in my area, in my house, with a few people that I know. To the office I go. And that's such a dangerous thing in some ways. I mean, if you're happy with it, I know one person, he wanted to be a clerk in the bank forever. Even though he was very good, even though he was offered promotion, he never wanted to take it up because he didn't want the additional responsibilities that came with it, and because he had a very strong urge to spend time with himself, his mother, in spiritual activities. So he said, I'm happy with being a clerk as long as it's bringing me home some money. I have enough to eat and take care. I'm happy. And he is truly happy. And there are people who are not happy in our jobs, but we are also afraid to apply. We don't know how it is out there. Now I have this job, I'm happy here. And we won't even apply, and we are jealous that someone else applied and they got it. And then we put ourselves down, oh my God, I can't even get a job. I can't even write a resume. We go through all of that. Fear of failure holds us back to explore the world because I don't want to get out of that comfort zone. So, especially, definitely we need to try, but definitely for children, especially for children, you need to provide opportunities for them where they go through their failures. For example, if a child is afraid of dark room, okay, now you carry the child, you hold the child, you talk to the child, and you walk into the dark room. You help the child turn on the light, and then you look around, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? So that's a deliberate effort. It's not like, okay, I'm sitting in the living room, you go turn on the light, nothing is going to happen. See, I go turn on the light, I come, nothing happened to me. Now you go turn on the light. So then the child feels alone. I mean, the fear is even going towards the dark. But now I go with the child, and I don't have to do it every time the child wants to go into that room. It's just a first few times, right? Um, My mother is afraid to sit on a two-wheeler. Fear of falling down, fear of failure. It's like fear that I cannot even sit properly on a two-wheel. Now her sister is fine, her co-sisters are fine. Now where did this fear come from? She's pretty daring that way. But why is she afraid? When we look back, I mean, she lost her mother very young, so she was raised mm, typically around her brother, older brother, who was quite decisive in nature. He had certain rules for how men in the family must be, women in the family must be. And he said you cannot even talk to men unless they are your brothers or the cousins that you know. So there was this ingrained thought that you cannot talk to men, walk with men, ride with men. And back then, when like 50 years ago, when she was still like young enough to explore all of these, many of them did not have two-wheelers, and those who had and those who rode were typically men. And it was like, no, I don't want to sit with them. And that closed it. And it turned into something else. fear of disappointing her brother, fear of failing her brother who took care of her. So you go looking at what are things that you are not comfortable doing. I may be afraid of inviting people over, more than 10 people, because I fear not cooking well, not being a good host, not taking care of them. I have that fear of not cooking enough. So I make humongous quantities sometimes because I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail the expectations. And to top it, it happened twice in a big way. When we were celebrating my son's first birthday, I invited about 15 people. The food wasn't enough. There was only rice left over at the end. So I did not take a step back and reflect on how much food may be required for 10 people. Simplest, how much food one person would eat and multiply that by 10 times. That was not in my frame of mind at all. Even stopping to think is is something out of my comfort zone. It's better I avoid. Better don't invite people, or don't invite 10 people. Invite five, cook for 10, and you'll be fine. And till date, I hear the comments where I cook more, I waste food. But then there is a lot of fear associated when I do just enough quantity. So the fear of failure is associated with keeping my worth to an extent that I feel worthy, right? So it's not it's not just we don't even know that fear. We try avoiding doing things, like for me, I would avoid inviting people over. My mother would avoid going on a two-wheeler. My teacher would avoid competing in anything. And then when somebody gets a prize who was not as competent as her, he'll sit and regret and complain, saying that I could run better than her, I could play better than her. Why did you not participate? Fear, right? So anytime that we see ourselves wanting to do but not doing it, somewhere we are self-sabotaging. Somewhere this mantra is going on in our head that I must succeed. If I take something up, I must succeed. But this whole thing is a process, right? You will not believe this. Just last week, I had to make chapatis for like 20 people. I mean, we were going on a potluck lunch outside, and my turn was to make chapatis. And very consciously, for the first time in my entire life, I took 2 scoops of the flour and kneaded into a dough and separated them, and I could see 3 chapatis could be made with 2 scoops with that whatever measure I had taken. Now I said 20 people. Let's assume they will eat 2 per each, so I need 40. So I need so many of these, 12 scoops of these, 24 scoops of these. And I measured it, and I was so happy. You know, it's I could have done this 40 years ago, but the fear was blocking. Fear would not even allow me to explore how it would be without that. you know so I always try to manage the situation by avoiding or overdoing. But because overdoing also, I need to hear, right, I'm wasting food. Otherwise I feel like a bad host and I don't have enough food. then I scramble around. I'm not enjoying the whole process at all. So I saw my mother, I mean, she could, if she has to empty like a full pot of sambar into something else, she will take one scoop at a time and do it. I mean, lots of patience. She will not spill, she will not complain, she will do it. I'm very impatient because somewhere I'm racing something, God knows what. Because I've procrastinated out of fear, I have to catch it up. I have to remember what I procrastinated. And there are several of those that I've done it. I'm trying to avoid who is coming and who is inviting me. If I go to their heed to their invitation, then I probably have to invite because there's conditioning that it's a give and take policy. So I avoid. I don't want to disturb the boat I'm in. Don't make yourself uncomfortable. All of this hold me back. I must get it right. I must not fail. This is when we tighten up, and we are used to this. That is comfort. Being in the angry phase, being in anxiety, anxious state is comfortable. I have another example where this husband was doubting his wife. Whenever she dressed up well, he would like complain and whatnot. And when she complained, or not complained, maybe even talked to her mother, I don't know. And the mother said, "Oh, thank God, your husband is not beating you up. Look at your sister. Her husband beats her up. So you are lucky he's not doing that." I mean, that's what we get when we share. So it's like we get used to getting abused. Abuse becomes my comfort zone because I cannot stand in my own truth. My identity is so confused. So this fear, when I address it, it will dissolve this comfort, the so-called comfort zone, and it begins to replace that control that I've given to somebody else, right? So question it. If I fail, who am I? What becomes of me? What am I set to achieve in my life? So somewhere I began to understand that it is not the outcome, it is not the end result, it is now the process. I may have invited 20 people this weekend, but I begin fearing it from today, from the minute I invite. Even when inviting, I'm like, oh no, not them. They're very picky. They'll blame, they'll label, they eat a lot, they don't eat a lot. Leave them. Then I don't have anybody to invite. So it helps me when I understand these sensations of tightness coming into my body. It helps me understand I need to question them. I need to shake them a little bit. I need to step out of my comfort zone, knowing that I may fail. And what will happen, right? At the most, I will have to buy food. Forget it. Now, I will not avoid inviting people. I'll invite them to a restaurant. Let's all meet there. Eat whatever you all want. Everyone is happy. So I become comfortable with one small aspect of avoiding. And I start looking at people. I mean, how much, what do they enjoy? How do they like it? And so the care starts coming in rather than avoiding. We don't start punishing ourselves. That self-talk is more dangerous than anybody else pointing it out. So that inner posture that I have, that inner authority that I have, that should strengthen. I remain whole even if I fail. We have nice proverbs, failing is stepping stone to success, and that is also ingrained in us. But when I fail, nobody is going to tell me that that's fine. It's one down, like Thomas Edison. One alloy did not work. One off the list. You have 1800 more to try. And you do 10 down, they're like, stop it. Don't even do it. That's majority of us. Because I, as a parent, am also under the fear of failure. Now, what can I give my child? So, somewhere before this fear kind of peaks and takes over, you see all these behaviors: procrastination, over explanation, avoidance, withdrawals, different kinds where you are not basically comfortable. Before it becomes, before it takes over, say that I am going to consciously try. So it's basically the fear of failure is asking me to value myself for who I am, not that I need to prove to the world. I need to begin valuing me. Then the self-worth automatically takes shape. And of course, you may not be very um, successful. You may not get what you set out for, but definitely it's one step forward. And you say, okay, this is what I learned. This is not my identity. This is a process. This is the process. What I become at the end of this process, and process need not be whole life. Whole life is also a process. The process is inviting people, planning your meals, ensuring with whatever, like measurements and keeping some non-perishable items handy, whatever, planning and ensuring that, and going through that process. And invariably, you will see where you thought a family of two would come, family of eight show up. Six you never expected. Then my balance is off again. No, I can see my balance going off. Now, what can I do under this circumstance? You have dry, non-perishable items. Bring them forth and manage the situation. We had a rule, in the parties, family cut back. We would say FCB, FCB, when extra people came over. You don't eat chapatis, you finish off that curry, you just keep eating rice. So come up with strategies, and they work. All right. So begin observing where you are holding yourself back. And if it is the fear of failure that's holding you back, and begin going right into it, knowing that you may fail, be aware and do it. And once you go through it, nothing really great thing happened, and it was not really as bad as I thought it was. Typically it happens, you go to this amusement park, you want to go on this big ride, people, you're so afraid to get on it, but people are coming out happy and somebody pushes you, come, I'll go with you. You go in there, you're like super scared. But then when you come out, it wasn't as bad as I thought. That's all it is. When you go through it, only then you will know, is it worth fearing that failure? Good luck. Thank you.